Welcome, everybody, to the Tao Te Ching series. We are on number 52. Format. I'm going to invite everybody to read their favorite translation of number 52. Then Jason and Paige are going to present the translations. And then we are going to have a general discussion. And then we'll move on to number 53. All right. If you'd like to read number 52, just go ahead and type an exclamation mark. Just state which translation it is. Just read the verse, and then we will go to the next reading. We'll have plenty of time for for comments later on. All right, let's start with Quan, followed by Connie. Quan.
Translation by Professor Moss Roberts, stanza 52. The world below has its gestation. We hold there's mother of all below. The mother gained, the children known. The children known, the mother regained. Then your life will not miscarry. Interdict all interaction. Seal and bar all gates and doors. Thus prevent debility. Open path of interactions. Busy furthering your ends, then never make recovery. True visions march the smallest signs. Real strength keeps to the gentle way. Apply your view, but regain true vision's inner home. Fall not into life's misfortunes. Strive for the common lasting norm.
Thank you, Quan. Next up is Connie, followed by Penny. Connie.
Okay. The beginning of everything is this is Ursula Gwynn. The beginning of everything is the mother of everything. Truly, to know the mother is to know her children, and truly to know the children is to turn back to the mother. The body comes to its ending, but there is nothing to fear. Close the openings, shut the doors, and the end of life, nothing will trouble you. Open the openings, be busy with business, and to the end of life, nothing can help you. Insight sees the insignificant. Strength knows how to yield. Use the way's light, return to its insight, and so keep from going too far. That's how to practice what's forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. Next up is Penny. Folks, if you'd like to read your favorite translation, go ahead and type an exclamation mark. Penny, go ahead.
Okay, this is Jia Fu Feng. The beginning of the universe is the mother of all things. Knowing the mother, one also knows the sons. Knowing the sons, yet remaining in touch with the mother, brings freedom from the fear of death. Keep your mouth shut, guard the senses, and life is ever full. Open your mouth, always be busy, and life is beyond hope. Seeing the small is insight. Yielding to force is strength. Using the outer light, return to insight, and in this way be safe from harm. This is learning constancy.
Thank you, Penny. Next up is Jyoti. Jyoti, go ahead, if you could unmute yourself. Okay. I'm going to read one more time Ursula Le Guin, which is my favorite translation.
I'm ready if you are ready.
Jyoti, go ahead.
Okay. Just give me 1 second. I'm having a little problem shifting. Okay, I'm going to read the chapter by Stephen Mitchell. In the beginning was the Tao. All things issue from it. All things return to it. To find the origin, trace back the manifestations. When you recognize the children and find the mother, you will be free of sorrow. If you close your mind in judgments and traffic with desires, your heart will be troubled. If you keep your mind from judging and aren't led by the senses, your heart will find peace. Seeing into darkness is clarity. Knowing how to yield is strength. Use your own light and return to the source of light. This is called practicing eternity. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Jyoti. I'm going to read Ursula Le Guin. She calls it back to the beginning. The beginning of everything is the mother of everything. Truly, to know the mother is to know her children. And truly, to know the children is to turn back to the mother. The body comes to its ending, but there is nothing to fear. Close the openings, shut the doors, and to the end of life, nothing will trouble you. Open the openings, be busy with business, and to the end of life, nothing can help you. Insight sees the insignificant. Strength knows how to yield. Use the way's light. Return to its insight. And so, keep from going too far. That is how to practice what's forever. All right. So now it is Jason and Peiji. Jason, can you, what do you want to do next?
Just 1 minute. Okay, chapter 52. Embrace the mother. The world has its own beginning, which is regarded as the mother of the world. I'm sorry, okay. From the mother, you can understand her songs. After knowing the songs, you still need to embrace the mother. In a way, your whole life can be lived away from danger. Close the mouth, shut the door, and the whole life is not hard. Open the mouth, engage in worldly affairs, and the whole life is not safe. To see the small is to enlighten. To embrace the soft is to be strong. Use light to return enlightened. The rest of life won't be dangerous. This is called following the usual Tao. So we should explain now, or
Yes. How about you go ahead and explain?
okay.
And then let Peiji go ahead and read his, and then he can explain, and then we can have you can have a conversation. Does that work?
Okay, let's try this way. Okay, yeah. So here, I think the basics here I think when I listen to all the translation, basically this one is a little bit disconnected. I had to be honest, okay? Because the first part I separate as 3 parts. The first part, I call it arboreal metaphor. It talks about what is root, what is branch, right? Mother and the son. So basically talk about the metaphysical. What's the important thing? What's the less important thing? So you can imagine, you can think in this way, right? Something very is the root, and which is more difficult is the fundamental, and then something is a branch, okay, which is secular or worldly affair. After you understand the easy part, the branch, but you still have to go to the root. I think that's the first part is talking about. And the second part, basics, is talking about, I think the translation a little bit different, depending on how you read it. But in my opinion, this word, 月, I think should means mouth. So basic is talking about close the mouth, shut the door, okay? Then the whole life will not be hard. 不勤. Qin means diligent. In Confucius teaching, this is a good word because you have to work diligent. But in Taoism, this one could be the bad word because that means you are toiling your life. So this sentence, the translation would be close your mouth, shut the door. The whole life is not hard. Okay, you don't have to busy around all day long. So the opposite is open the mouth, close the door. Okay, but it doesn't say close the door. It says 记其事 means engage in a lot of affairs. Then the whole life will not be safe. So the first part is teaching about what you need to know, the fundamental, the root, okay? And then the second part talk about your behavior, right? Close your door, close your mouth, don't talk too much. Close the door, don't go outside to do too many things to interfere. Then that's the thing. Last part talking about I think it's personal practice or whatever, I'm not sure, but basically talking about to see the small is to be enlightened, to embrace the soft to be strong, to light is return enlightened, basic teaching. But I think the key difference is last words, 习常. Depends on how you read it. I heard like some translate as how to practice what is forever. And another thing is learning the constancy or practicing eternity. And then my understanding, 习 means follow. I disagree. It's a learning or practicing. I think that means follow. Okay. I'm not talking about the meaning of Taoism teaching. I'm talking based on this word. Okay. I think this word should interpret as following. And the second thing is 常. Most translation will translate as constancy, eternity, forever. But I think I will translate as usual. Okay, just like last week we discussed, I may translate as every day. Okay, something like every day, common. Okay, which is Tao, my understanding, the attitude of this Tao. So that's I will stop here, and then Peggy, I would like to see how you understand this one.
Hey, Peiji, if you could share your screen and just go through your translation the same way. Go ahead, Peiji, you can unmute.
Yeah, so sorry, I was unmuted. Here is my translation. The world has its origin, which can be regarded as the mother. By reaching the mother, you know her children. Having known the children, you return to stay with the mother, and you will be beyond harm without your body. Keep your mouth closed and your door shut. Your entire life will be free from hard labor. Open your mouth and busily partake motivated activities. Your entire life will be irreparable. Seeing the small is enlightenment. Maintaining flexible is strength. By utilizing its light to clearly see the source, such is called following the constancy. Now, there is not much different from Jason's translation, because we both follow the original text very closely. There are some difference. Let me explain. Firstly, children versus sons. I think in modern days, people misunderstood the original meaning of the text 字. Now, this by itself usually referring to, by default, mean boy, son. But that's not how the original text, the original meaning of that. The girl is also used, when describe a girl, is also used this character, 男子,女子, right? So, so this character originally mean child, or in plural form, children. It's not strictly to a boy, a son. Only when you omit, you by default is people are thinking about a son, but in this context, it's really about children. It will make no sense about signify sons alone. So I think so I think more appropriate translation will be children. I'm sorry, Jason, and you can disagree with this. That's no problem.
I already changed it. I already changed the text.
Thank you. So the rest, yes, like many people, there are many translation versions talking about, like keep your, instead of saying mouth shut, they say the desires, not having desires. This is really, the original text is really about the mouth, where the talk come from. So literally, this is a very figurative language. It simply say, the plug your mouth. So stop talking. That's what the underlying meaning is. So I'm being a bit gentle about the mouth. Instead of shut your mouth, just say keep your mouth closed and don't shut. This is the metaphor. It's talking about non-doing, which is clearly the highlighted in the following paragraph. And indeed, by non-doing, then your life will be without hardship. Now, we often, act with the motivation, and the result is we often will have to undo what we will be doing, right? So easiest thing is just to follow your awareness, just to act spontaneously. In Buddhist term, being mindful, and have your mind to the present moment. Seeing the small is enlightenment. Some people translate this small to its underlying meaning is really invisible or insignificant, which is a great translation. But I just want to make it truly translate as it is. Small here certainly means that insignificant. Now, why seeing the small is enlightenment? Now, this enlightenment I will talk about later. This is my consistent translation. Unlike others, they translate differently for this character, and that character really means enlightenment. Literally means enlightenment. It's the result of receiving the light, and so it becomes clear, bright. So when we describe a room is bright, is the result of receiving light. So you can also say the room is enlightened. Same as object, when object is receiving the light, and particularly when the light goes through the surface, the object becomes transparent, illuminated, and enlightened. That's how the character is being described here in the whole book. Is really about being enlightened, or enlightenment, or realization. Something is beyond understanding. This is the hardest to translate, and the closest are probably Jason's, and also the guy I think was let me get rid of this part. Yeah, the guy called Jiafu Fan, and is basically using the outline, return to the inside. Now, I think that's the closest, but not reflect the original text. The metaphor, the figurative speech. The original text is really trying to saying that by utilizing its light to see clearly the source. Here, qi is really mean the source, where the light is coming from. So what this one is saying is being the Tao, to understand the Tao, to know the Tao. Now, this is you will feel still very puzzling how that's possible. But if you link the Tao to awareness, now you will understand, because we are the Tao, we are the awareness. Being the awareness, you will be aware. And you can see the last line. That last line is really to confirm how this line should be understood. You see, you are following the constant, you are following the source, right? The source made all things being seen, enlightens everything. And now you need to look at the source, understand the source, following the constancy. Now, this constancy is very important concept. It's actually the most important concept. The book is really talking about the constancy, and which is in the first verse. It is this constancy that the Tao is referring to. Now, in verse 25, Laozi called this constancy, refer this constancy, address this constancy as a Tao, and call it great. And in verse 28, this constancy is being called Pu. So there is lots of names. The calling have been utilized, have been used to describe this concept, the constancy. Now, why it's not being understood that way? Because the concept is too profound. And also, this character can easily be considered as adjective or adverb. So when this character is used as adverb, yes, it's usual. And the always, often, or constant, or eternal, those are the adjective if you use that. But this is really, this is really on its own. It's the very important term. Now, how do I know this? Because the way that it's been used, it is being used in verse 55. 自常月明, knowing the constancy is enlightenment. So this is a profound concept. You know, Zhuangzi, the most famous Taoist, he is about 100 to 300 after Laozi. He remarked, there are ancients whose knowing has reached to unsurpassed, utmost knowing. This is what he's referring to. Someone can realize there is ultimate existence before the universe is formed. Now, that is remarkable. That is on the top, and nothing one can go further. That's his remark. This is not something one can understand through the intellect. The realization only through the directly knowing. So very important to use the word knowing rather than understanding, because it may feel puzzling, because knowing is a bit, the connotation is too wide. It's not being specific enough. But here, there is no other way to describe it accurately, because it's beyond the knowing. And mind you, this line is actually also occurred in verse 16. So I'm still puzzled why the Chinese scholars still haven't figured out this most important concept, which affected all the translators. So I will stop here.
Thank you, Peichi. Jason, your comments, and then we will open it up for everybody. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. I can. Peggy, I do have a few questions. Okay. First, I think the key difference between Peggy and I will be here, right? Peggy is think it's a constancy. I believe the majority will believe it's a constancy or eternal. And my previous version I translate as I think it's unchanging or constancy, something like this. But for this version, I read through, I decide to change. Because there's many reasons, but just keep the difference. I do change. You can see I changed the word from copy from Peggy. Instead of the song, I changed it to church, and I think that makes sense. It's not only for today's purpose, also original meaning is that, especially in Taoist, which is more neutral, less male dominant concept. So I agree, that's great. And then I think I appreciate Peggy's translation. So and here the words I use the embrace, and then Peggy use maintain. I would think about that. Maintain could be the good word, but I have different reason. Even I believe maintain is a good word. And then another difference is Peggy translated the word flexibility for role. And I use the word soft. And actually, I'm struggle between soft and flexible, because that's a contrast, right? Which you embrace or maintain your flexibility, right? And then that means strong. So or you call soft. So I think that's also very close word. But one thing I don't understand, Peggy, is this word you translate as source, and I don't know where's the source coming from. 复归其民, basically the word is return to enlightenment. I totally understand means enlightenment. So where's the source? That's my question.
Source is implied, is talking about the guang, yeah.
So you say implied source, right? Okay, I think that's it. Thank you.
Oh, by the way, you see there is a one original text character difference, and the my translation of my version. The she is the
物归其名 ，right？
No, the other one 士为习常，
视为习常 ，yeah，
习常对习。
yeah.
My original text is actually written as 世袭的习。
Oh yeah, I think that's the same word. Okay,
Yeah.
during that time,
So
probably
it's
the same word.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are
With
right.
that writing, not clear, right? It's about the following. It's following inheriting.
Yeah. Because
Following
this,
according to your ancestor. Yeah.
yeah. That word basics means the under the when you bury the dead body, okay, you have to wear the underwear. Okay, so xi means that underwear for the dead person. So that means following the out coat, and then you put the under. So that means follow. That's the reason I believe it's follow, not this word. Yeah.
There is a subtlety about this following. It is really this following is about the ancestor. So it is the subtlety is that you should treat the constancy, the Tao, as our ancestor, which it's elaborated in other verse. So there was the habit, the customary, that for people to worship their ancestor, right? So the Laozi use that the language, the metaphor to encourage people to treat that the Tao, the constancy as their ancestor. You never forget that, and that's how you can maintain your generation after generation, and without being seized. It's really people worshiping their ancestor. The one of the purpose is so they can continue to have the bloodline continued.
Thank you. All right, next up is going to be David. David, go ahead. Give me just a second. Yeah, go ahead, David.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, and on the one issue that was brought up in your discussion back and forth, guys, it makes me think of this. Philosophy and philosophic writing, and I think scriptures are even a special category. This, without a linguistics systematic discipline, the words will always be confusing and shifting their meaning. So when you hear becoming or potential or causes or knowing, then it's going to be, what does it mean in this context? And is this the right word here? And I think the West has taken a lot of time to try to settle. Maybe there are ways we can columnarize, make these words clear and distinct in their particular uses. So, but I don't think we're doing that with this. So I'm reading this as a poetic writing. This is poetry in a sense, revealing language about a wisdom of phenomena, which is a kind of philosophic work, but it's sort of poetic. So I'm looking at this verse and unifying, what are the images here? Why is this done this way? And Piaget was just getting to the end there. Mother-child, this relationship is about bearing and producing and carrying forth. So we're talking about source and the results, what appears in the world. This is cause and effect in a way, right? We're really talking about knowing why and where things arise. The mother, the universe is born from. So why should we know this? Our efficacy is not in forcing the world to be a certain way, but an intuitional knowing of the way the world is and recognizing, which we would call the enlightenment here, right? That is being in touch with what it really is. And we've learned in prior lessons that our efficacy is brought forth not through force, it's at motion as non-motion. That's how the enlightened one gets things done. So it's soft and small in channeling the already channeled forces to move it forward. That's our efficacy. To do that, we have to be, we're not usually noticed, we seem insignificant, and the causes aren't usually noticed and seem insignificant, but the one who's enlightened sees what's really behind the curtain. And that's where the cause, the mother of this is. So knowing that, it's a soft and small relationship to the world that makes it not strife. That's how I saw all the images coming together for me. So reading it as a poem, that's the way I kind of see it.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks, David. Great observations. Next up is going to be Quan, followed by Laura. Quan.
Well, I would like to say that I know the Chinese text, and I would like to make an apology for the translation of Professor Moss Roberts, because, and being inspired by stanza 38 of the Tao Te Ching, when the old master started with the highest being of awareness, I will start with the end of the stanza 52. Okay, and I would like to read it again if you bear with me. True vision marks the smallest signs, real strength keeps to the gentler way. Apply your view, but regain true visions in a home. Fall not into life's misfortunes, strive for the common lasting norm. And I would say that I would maybe replace try by realize for the common lasting norm, but that would be the only change that I would make, because precisely that common lasting norm, I think, is the deep teaching of the old master, meaning being awareness. Okay, and when I was jokingly referring to stanza 38, you remember probably that I said that with the paragraph 2.4 from the Analects of Confucius, he started from the first layer of mind development, the second, the third, and the fourth, the fifth, the sixth. But what stanza 38 from the Tao Te Ching, the old master started with the highest layer 6, and he goes down to layer 5, layer 4, layer 3, layer 2, layer 1, ending with the rituals. So, and here I go up now to the beginning of the stanza. I think that's once again it's a poetic way. Absolutely, I agree with David on that, for expressing very deep ontological realizations. Okay, because in my the Professor Roberts translation, the mother gain, the children know, the mother regain. Of course, that the mother here is the timeless source, and the children are the phenomena in time. So absolutely, there is a relation of cause to effect. It's obvious, and that mother of all below is precisely that being. I know that Wu Wei doesn't appear in this stanza, but what we translate as non-doing or Wu Wei for Wu Wei, I think that it's one of the best occasion to speak of non-doing precisely, because what is non-doing is being precisely, because being is not in the order of doing. We often make the correlation or the rapprochement between to be or to have, right? But to have, you need to do to have to get things, and to be, you don't need to do anything. You already are. Okay, when we are talking of being awareness, so to be, you only need to deeply realize that lasting awareness. To read the last sentence, strive for the common lasting norm, and that is, I think, one of the deepest correlation that can be done between the life of having, meaning the life of doing, and Wu Wei, which is non-doing or being. Okay, I would say that rather, I think that translating, but we can translate that in being too, or we can translate it in awareness with a capital A, or maybe we can translate it in formless awareness, or in infinite awareness, or in whole awareness. Anyway, so I stop here because the main thing I want to say that probably is one of the best definition of Wu Wei, even if Wu Wei did not appear in the stanza. I stop here.
Wonderful. Great observations as always. Thank you, Quan. Next up is going to be Laura, followed by Mark. Laura. Laura, if you can unmute. Laura, you need to unmute. Laura, we can't hear you.
Okay, I'm unmuted, right? Okay, I have a little I don't know. I like the fact that you want the word to be children, but I feel that that's your desire. I don't feel that it was really written with the mind of children. I think it was meant to be boy. I think it's very masculine oriented. And if you look at the next stanza, I'm pretty sure that wasn't including children as little girls also. And I think maybe you ought to rethink that interpretation or remove that second stanza, because I think that second stanza seems something that I imagine little boys' behavior being more oriented to than little girls' behavior. So I don't know. That's just my view.
Thank you, Laura, and welcome back. Nice to see you.
I'm glad to be back.
Excellent.
Or at least...
Thank you.
Thank
next
you.
up is going to be Mark, followed by David. Mark.
Thank you, Shrikant. Wonderful listening to everybody. And my question is about the epistemological order here at the beginning. It seems like we begin with the mother, and having known the mother, we come to know the children. So I'm asking whether other people are understanding this as we are starting from the one and proceeding to the many. In our knowledge, which might be counterintuitive, we might think, well, we're going to start with the many, we're eventually going to realize the Tao is there. But then the movement continues in a circular motion, and then we come back to hold on to the mother. So I'm wondering about that cycle.
Thank you. Jason, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, I agree in general, I agree with you. And then that's also the way I read it, right? If I'm looking at the read word by word, right? So start from mother, then you know the son, okay? You can take a root and the branch. That's the way I do it. From the root, you know the branch. And most of people, when you know the branch, which means for example, like you know the theory, physical theory, right? Then you derive the formula. Then you use the formula to resolve all kinds of problems. And you find that it's wonderful. Then you forget the fundamental theory. So here is remind you, even you have the formula, which is very useful, don't forget the fundamental physical theory. Okay, that's the mother. I think that's what he wanted to talk about. Yeah.
Thank you. Next up is going to be David, followed by, Peji, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I would like to comment. Thank you, David and Mark, for your magnificent narrative about your understanding of the verse. And also, Mark, you asked the similar question, was referring to the similar thing, what the verse is trying to telling us, particularly in relation to a mother and the children. Now, to that, I would say that the author obviously observed the people's behaving, and particularly actively, busy with their life and also competing with others. Now, this is really the metaphor to remind the readers that we are all siblings. There is no enemy. There is nothing you should compete. We are actually at one, and therefore why you should observe the non-doing. and why you should always remember our ancestor, the Tao, the constancy. And when we, keep remind ourselves about that, it's just like being aware that your essence is really that the Tao, the awareness. So the whole takeaway message is not unsimilar to the Buddhist teaching, being mindful, practicing non-doing. Non-doing, indeed, Guan, you said brilliantly, non-doing means being. Instead of engaging your mind, the intellect, which is doing. So doing versus being, indeed.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Peiji. I really like one of the points that you made here on the side, that if we are all children of the Tao, we are brothers. And that is a very deep connection here of saying that you're looking for, by going back, the way in which Ursula Le Guin presents it is that this chapter on the themes of return and centering makes circles within itself and throughout the book, returning to the phrases from other poems, turning them round the center which is everywhere, a center whose circumference is infinite. So it's like, you're going back to the Tao, which is the center, and you keep returning back. You go to the manifestations of it, which are the children, and then you go back to the center. Thank you. Next up is going to be David, followed by Madeline and Yulia. David.
Yeah, thanks. I wanted to, I guess, follow up on the way that Quan approached it, very much Wu Wei. I had one specific question, which is this line, open your mouth and busily partake motivated activities. Your entire life will be irreparable. What exactly is irreparable? I mean, in English, it sounds like it's a negative. I'm not certain if that's intended to be in the original Chinese, that this is negative, because that entire stanza, I mean, it's sort of a second part to the question, is almost like what's not said is what's being said, in that you keep that it's implying that there are these two choices. Keep your mouth closed, your entire life will be free from labor. Open your mouth and busily partake, you will be irreparable, which sounds negative, but it almost sounds like it's saying these are the two wrong extremes, and I'm not telling you, you should infer in between these two that there's a way to behave that's neither of these, that's the better life. Is that a correct interpretation?
Jason, go ahead.
Yeah, let me forget about the English translation. Okay, that's back to the Chinese, right? The first talking about close your mouth, okay, and shut the door. And the whole life, they called buqin, not diligent. Okay, that's the original word, not diligent. Diligence, in a way, is a good thing. You be diligent. But in Taoist thinking, okay, diligent means toiling because you are busy around. Okay, so if you have the door closed, mouth shut, you will not that busy. Okay, and if you have the mouth open, meddling around the business, outside the business, right? And your whole life will not be safe. Okay, in a way, it's dangerous. That's 不济. Okay, that's the 不救. Okay, 救 means safe or safe. Okay, so not safe. So use the negative. The one is not busy or not mess up. Okay, and the other one is not safe. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason. Next up is going to be Madeline. Madeline, go ahead.
Yes, thanks, Shrikant. And thanks, Jason and Peiji, for your translations. Jason, can you put yours up on the screen again for a minute? Thanks. So what Mark said got me to thinking. I don't see, so this first stanza, I don't see it as something that's happening in order. It's more like the that discussion we had, I think it was last time, about emerging and receding. And so it's more like a pulse than a circle. So like if you put your fingers on the pulse of your wrist and you feel it pulsing, whether you feel the pulse, you know, kind of popping up, that's the emerging, and going down is receding. But below all that, or in that, is the actual blood and the vein, and you know, the blood is still moving. And so that would be more like the Tao, and the sense of the pulse surging would be the children. I see the close the mouth, shut the door, and the whole of life is not hard. So it's also about engaging your senses in the world, that first line of that stanza. Right now, I immediately think of online news and social media. Don't let it all in. You know, be very selective. And I don't know, it could be irreparable. Because it is infectious, and it does kind of bring out the worst in people. Yeah, this is a very beautiful one. So thank you for the translations.
Thank you. All right. Next up is going to be Paul. Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to see what track you're on compared to what track I'm on, Jason and others. In this description of the open mouth and things, it feels like, and close your mouth and door shut, feels like we were sort of invited or even forced to embrace what Wu Wei is by this, meaning I'm seeing this, just want to sanity check this with you, as there's an implication, if you sort of get literal about it, that you should just never say anything and hide, essentially. But really, one could do lots of talking and partake, maybe not quote unquote busily, of many activities and be in a state of pure being while your mouth is open, while your door is open. And the metaphor is metaphorical, and it's that there's this, what someone asked for about a middle ground. Well, maybe this isn't the middle ground, but are we still in agreement? Because once, Jason, you mentioned that Wu Wei does not mean non-action. One could act, so to speak, in quotes, and still be in a condition of practicing Wu Wei. So my question all revolves around that. Either call it a confusion or clarification. Thank you.
I didn't say did I say Wu is non-action?
You know, you said it is not.
It's not. Okay, put this way. Wu Wei, okay. Wu Wei, but nothing undone. Okay, so that's the words. Okay, Wu Wei. Okay. So you practice non-doing, but nothing undone. Doesn't mean you, when you shut the door, close your mouth, doesn't mean you speak nothing, you do nothing. But the thing should be done, even you close your door. But you may ask, how? Well, I'm not here to ask, give you an answer, but you need to find out yourself. Okay.
Just a quick
Go ahead, Peiji.
To Paul's question. The original text, Wu Wei, Wei is really means motivated action. The action from leaders, from high officials. It's not talking about the laboring, you know, the action from a blue collar, if you like. So non-doing, Wu Wei is really without motivated action, without engaging your mind, the analytical mind. That's what it's about. And only by doing that, by spontaneously. You let the nature take its course. Because when you're doing things selectively, you effectively neglect something you don't do. So you sort of basically put the nature in out balance. Now, having said that, it's very important. This is not advocating for individuals. It's naturally for individual act differently, and naturally for individual act with some motivation. That's how the individuality is achieved. That's how the world will transform, because we are not one. We are not in conform to any particular standard. But this piece of advice is mainly for leaders. When you act for collectively, then you need to think about not interfere. You want to give the space for individual to act freely, rather than you act collectively on particular thing. Because if you do that, you're selectively doing that particular thing heavily in the whole nation, then you ignore the things you haven't done, which means you create imbalance. Remember, everything is interconnected. Everything have the equal importance, right? And that's why in this verse, it's talking about seeing the small is enlightenment. The small here is the metaphor. It's actually a pun intended. Small means the Tao, the constancy. Remember, there are multiple times it mentioned constancy is a small, is invisible. It's invisibly small, but also indicates something that is a small, trivial, really have the same importance. Therefore, seeing such insignificant things that others normally will ignore is enlightenment.
Thank you, Peiji.
That's
Next
all.
up is, thank you. Next up is Yulia. Yulia, go ahead.
Hi, I'm working off of the Ursula Le Guin translation, and she has it as truly to know the mother is to know her children, and truly to know the children is to turn back to the mother. This seemed to me like she is seeing them somehow as equal. So like in a kind of hermeneutic circle where, in order to understand the whole, you need to understand the parts. And in order to understand each part, you need to understand the whole. So it sounded kind of like, she was giving them equal importance. But Jason, in your translation where you have it as after knowing the children, you still need to embrace the mother. And from the conversation we've been having, it doesn't sound like they're equal. It sounds more like he's saying we're putting too much emphasis on the children, on these actual specific phenomena. We have to keep going back to the mother. So I was just wondering, Jason and PG, what you think of that. If you think maybe the Ursula Le Guin translation makes them a little bit too equal. Thanks.
I think it's make it too equal. I don't see that's equal. Okay, it's mother and the son is not equal. And my understanding is mother is the source and the son is the result. Mother is the cause, son is the result. So one is, I like to use word is the root and the branch. Okay, use a tree, right? So if there's no root, there's no branch. So we usually see the branch, we forget about the root. That's the mother-children relationship. So I will have to say that's the correct understanding. I'm probably very sure there's no equal between mother and the children. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree on that point. The being equal is among all the beings. The mother here is absolute. It's no comparison. You can't comparing the absolute with the relatives. But it's not about emphasize word. It's just simply you need to always with the Tao. So you will not lose the sight. You will not, once you have that the mother in mind, then you automatically know all the children are yourself, are your sibling or really yourself.
Thanks, PG.
Thank you. Next up is Nick. Nick, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. So let me just start with a follow-up to David E's contrast of these two behaviors. One is close the door, the other is open the door. By the way, Jason, I don't know where you get this the mouse interpretation in this, but anyway, we'll come back to that. But this contrast between the open the door and try the hardest, and then the close the door, Wu Wei do nothing. I think that in order to understand this, for me, there's a precondition for Wu Wei, which is understanding of the mother of the universe. So it only works when we have the access to that Tao. So the middle part of the passage is conditioned by the first part of the passage. Otherwise, it would not make sense. So this first part of the passage, the mother of universe, the Tao, and the unity with the children, I think this is also reflected in the last part of the passage, where seeing the little insignificant is enlightenment. So this is to me very Aristotelian, in the sense that the way we access Tao, the form of Tao is in the particulars, rather than just sitting there meditating the floating Tao out there. So I just want to get a confirmation whether you guys read that the same way, because that's important for me, because then the conclusion would be, in order for us to access Tao, we still need to be busy with little things, particulars.
Go ahead, Jason, or
well, about you, Nick, I'm not going to comment your interpretation, and I probably agree with you, about how to, because definitely it's, I think my understanding, the essence, Wu Wei means, doesn't mean do nothing, means not interfering. So I think in chapter 49, is that right? Or 48, talking about 取天下. When you gain the word, you have to use non-interfering. So I think the essence of Wu Wei is not interfering. Doesn't mean do nothing. That's my understanding. But everybody can have different understanding. Back to Nick, your first question. What you asked, where's the mouse coming from? If you look at the Chinese word here, that's 塞其乐, okay? That 乐 means speaking, okay? Because that's the one side of the 说, right? So that word means speaking, okay, originally. That's why I translate as shut your mouth. But of course, you can say, take a metaphor. That means the aperture, a hole, close the hole, okay? Close what is open. That would be another way to do it. Yeah.
Beiji, go ahead.
The interesting question, Nick. And I think your question is a bit like the chicken and egg thing. Which come first? You feel that you need to do something to understand the Tao before you can be instead of Wu Wei doing nothing, then how can you understand the Tao? It's kind of paradox. That's exactly the chicken and egg question. because it's a profound thing. It's actually the chicken and egg, they actually come as one. They existed at the same time. This understanding, this is a Tao. It's not understanding. You know, if you are thinking about this is something you can understand through your intellect, then you will never get there. And that's why there are many religious followers. They feel difficult to be enlightened or realize because they constantly chasing the concept. They use their intellect. So here, this verse is really tell us you need to be that awareness, to be the Tao. You say, how can I be the Tao? Because you are, in essence, you are the Tao. You're already Tao. Without, if you are not busy engaging your mind, then you are in the moment Tao. You are being the awareness. So that you will not ignore what you've been made aware. So you are both the observer and being observed. You are both the awareness and being made aware. That's the essence of each of us. And yet the brilliance of the Tao is that even it is your host, but not make you feel it is your host. Right? There is a verse 34 mentioned about, all beings actually belong to that Tao, and yet they don't know that, they don't feel that way. That's the greatness of Tao. It's not lord over everyone. And give you the freedom. You live your individual life, that's fine. But your essence is really the awareness, the consciousness. Without it, your life ceases. Simple as that.
Excellent, Beiji. Thank you. Thank you. Next up is going to be Kwan, followed by Laura. Kwan.
Okay, so I would like to come back to Paul's interrogation and comment on the way. And once again, I want to read the last 4 lines of Professor Roberts' translation because I think it's once again the center of that. And I would like after to make a rapprochement between contemporary psychodynamic understanding and classical Chinese epistemology. First, the 4 lines by Professor Roberts again. Apply your view, but regain true visions in the home. Fall not into life's misfortunes. Strive for the common lasting norm. And I had the overbearing vanity to say that maybe strive should be replaced by realize for the common lasting norm. And here, I think that is one of the best explanation, if I can use the word explanation for Wu Wei, non-doing or being. Okay, once again, non-doing is exactly the same than being because it's the dimension of being versus the dimension of having. And if you want to have, you have to do. But if you want to be, you have nothing to do because you already are. But one of the deep mystery of life is that some people understand that right like that even when young, and others people will need to go through a long journey to wake up to that. Okay, and I have no explanation for that. It's life. And the rapprochement is I want to make with the psychodynamic concepts and the classical Chinese epistemology is in new psychodynamics, we have the notions of personality, individuality, and universal consciousness or universal awareness. Okay, because right now clinical psychology is advanced enough to include the notion of infinite awareness and not only of personality and individuality. And the rapprochement that I want to make once again with the character Wang in Chinese meaning king, but that each horizontal character represents 2 layers of the epistemological journey. And the bottom horizontal line of Wang, of king precisely, is layer 1 and 2. meaning the sense perceptions and the intellect. And it correlates exactly to the personality, okay? Personality, the voices coming from the people having influenced us and being in our mind, okay? Persona through the voice. The second horizontal line of king correspond to layers 3 and 4, meaning the social sophistication, and the first line of the awareness, if you want, called beauty, or E in Chinese, okay? And that corresponds to the individuality, meaning that from the chaos of influences that we got from others, we decide to do our own stuff. There we get our individuality. And finally, awareness with capital A correlates with the top horizontal line of King Wang, corresponding to layers 5 and 6, meaning according to Confucius, at 60 years old, I hear the wind of heaven without complaining. And at 70 years old, I can do what I want without infringing the universal law, meaning that I truly wake up to the reality of my being, okay? So I would say that even if I see myself as a Confucianist, that the Confucianist, in a caricatural way, in a joking way, are people who need to go through all these layers, the personality, the individuality, before reaching truly, and not only in words, but as PG said, you cannot reach it by intellect or by verbal argumentation, okay? You have to live it existentially. And they are people who need to do a lot of things, okay, through their personality, their individuality, to deeply realize their being, their Wu Wei precisely, okay? And that is precisely the chapter, paragraph 2.4 of the Analects, starting from 1 and ending with 6. And in Laozi, either in this stanza 52 and in stanza 38, as someone has said very rightly, that this stanza 52 starts with the mother, okay, with the of being, with Wu Wei, and we'll talk of the children in the second layer. And there we have precisely the people that would wake up to their Wu Wei, or their being, very young, and would do stuff in their lower epistemological layers. Okay, as Paul asked, what is the difference between is there action or no actions? Okay, well, Wu Wei is actions, but rooted in the pure awareness, rooted in your being. And Wei is precisely what PG said, that it's motivated behavior. And one is motivated behavior. I don't call it action, I call it activity in English. Activities are rooted personality, meaning the influences that you have put into yourself because of people having influenced you, or your individuality, which is a bit better psychodynamically speaking, meaning that activities that you do because you have selected certain influences that you have received, but that you feel that is closer to what you truly are. And finally, you wake up to that being that is your true identity. So yes, there are actions in Wu Wei, but those actions are not goal-oriented or personality-oriented or individuality-oriented, but rather rooted in primary awareness. I stop here.
Wonderful. Thank you. Now we're running short on time. Joe, do you have a quick comment? And then we'll go to number 53.
Yeah, why don't I just, Laura actually.
No, Laura has had a chance to comment once. So
okay.
The thing is that it's 9:22.
Okay, I'll make a very quick comment.
First one, so that's why.
Okay. You know, just looking at 52, and unfortunately, Jason, I didn't see your translation just yet. But the idea of, you know, the mother of all things, or all things are issued from it, meaning the Tao. You know, reading the multiple translations, they are all kind of getting to the same thing as understanding the relationship between us and the Tao, and the interconnectedness of all things. And I think that that's an important part of kind of understanding when it talks about sons as well in the version that I have, or the manifestations, however you want to refer to it. It's also this relationship between the parts and the whole. And I think that where we talk about the idea of, and I brought this up with Jason the other night, is we talk about naming things. I think it's, number 32, when we go too far in categorizing things. And we lose the idea, the connection to the Tao, because we actually, break things up to the point where they no longer have any meaning, and things become very fragmented. So then you lose the interconnections that we were talking about. It also speaks about, I guess, we're kind of getting to this element of Wu Wei, or and Quan was referring to a little bit now, just non-action. And I think understanding when it comes to speaking, and that's the version that I've been going off of, but it also it seems similar when it talks about guarding your senses and knowing when to speak, essentially, is a very important point, is because that's the idea of knowing how much, knowing when to stop. So just as we are naming things too much, it's also with our words, how to use them carefully, I think, is essential in that process. So when they talk about, really quickly, use your own light, it's the source of all light, or seeing the small insights, and yielding force is strength. To me, again, that goes back to the element of adaptability that exists within the Tao. And actually, in a way, what I initially thought of, and I know that this doesn't necessarily pertain to that, but if I thought about it in terms of something like the Art of War, when we covered it, the Art of War was much more about strategy over strength. And I think that there is that element that you can kind of see where when yielding to force is strength, or knowing how to yield is strength. That's the element that you understand strategically as to where, how to use force and leverage, as opposed to just brute force. And when you impose will, and you use, you go too far, you use too many words, you categorize things too far, that's brute force. And so that brute force is kind of linked back to the idea of being very strategic with what you're doing. And that's being adaptable. Strategy is something that is a principle that can flow. Whereas, something is brute force is something where you're just going to go straight forward. Anyway, so those are just, really quickly, those are just some thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. All right, let's go to number 53. Go ahead and type an exclamation mark if you'd like to read. I'm going to read from Ursula Le Guin to get started. 53. So I'm going to go with this. This is, she calls it insight. If my mind's modest, I walk the great way. Arrogance is all I fear. The great way is low and plain, but people like shortcuts over the mountains. The palace is full of splendor, and the fields are full of weeds, and the granaries are full of nothing. People wearing ornaments and fancy clothes, carrying weapons, drinking a lot and eating a lot, having a lot of things, a lot of money, shameless thieves, surely their way isn't the way. Next up, is going to be Quan, followed by Joe and Brian. Quan.
Translation by Professor Moss Roberts, stanza 53. Grant me this, to firmly know that in walking the great highway, I shall fear only to deviate from the highway plain and fair. For to byways men are lightly drawn. The court is richly blessed, but the farm fields are wasting, and the bins bare of grain, and courtiers dressed in elegance, bear when hold the swords, gorged on food and drink. The superflux of wealth and goods is the piper's tune for thieves, the negation of the way.
Thank you, Quan. Next up is Joe, followed by Penny. If anybody else wants to read, go ahead and type an exclamation mark.
I'll read the G.F. Fang translation. That would be all right. If I have even just a little sense, I will walk on the main road, and my only fear will be of straying from it. Keeping to the main road is easy, but people love to be sidetracked. When the court is arrayed in splendor, the fields are full of weeds, and the granaries are bare. Some wear gorgeous clothes, carry sharp swords, and indulge themselves with food and drink. They have more possessions than they can use. They are robber barons. This is certainly not the way of the Tao.
Thank you. Next up is Penny.
Okay, this is the J.H. MacDonald. If I understand only one thing, I would want to use it to follow the Tao. My only fear would be one of pride. The Tao goes in the level places, but people prefer to take the shortcuts. If too much time is spent cleaning the house, the land will become neglected and full of weeds, and the granaries will soon become empty, because there is no one out working the fields. To wear fancy clothes and ornaments, to have your fill of food and drink, and to waste all of your money buying possessions is called the crime of excess. Oh, how these things go against the way of the Tao.
Thank you, Penny. Next up is Jason. Jason, go ahead.
Okay, 53. It's very short, and I believe the message is quite simple, right? If I know a little, okay, just 1 minute. If I have a little wisdom, when traveling on the Great Tao, I only fear to be on any wavy route. The Great Tao is very smooth, but people prefer shortcut. The court has been abandoned. The field have grown weeds. The storehouse has been depleted. Okay, I put the parentheses because I assume they talk about the nobles, wear finery, carry precious swords, indulge in food and drink, and possess excessive wealth and goods. This is showing off what has been plundered, not the Tao indeed. Actually, the Tao here at the beginning, okay, same thing. I think probably, probably a lot of people already know. Tao, okay, this word, we call it Tao, but the actual meaning means the way. So I think this passage, this chapter, the author used this double meaning. So at the beginning, when I translate, I still keep the words Tao. Actually, you should say, translate as the superhighway, right? The what he's talking about metaphor, use the double meaning of this word. Talk about if I have little wisdom, 介然有之 means you have small knowledge. It's very simple. Then you know when you walk in the wide super highway, right? You don't want to walk on the Yi means the wavy route because that's easy. Okay, so here you talk about Tao is easy. Okay, just this way, very simple. Okay, but people take the shortcut, make it difficult. So I think that's the author take the double meaning on there. So technically, I should translate as a big road, something like this, instead of a great Tao. But I have my own reason because I want to be consistent. So later on is easy talking about the situation, right? Talking about the court, it's been abandoned. 除 means abandoned. And then the field has grown a lot of 无 means weeds. And the storehouse is empty. So, but you look at the people, I will assume he's talking about the noblemen. Okay, so I assume this text is a lesson to the nobleman. Okay, to the prince. Okay, talk about you guys will finally carry precious word. I will say here, some translate as 利剑. I will say 利 here because they carry sword not as a weapon, as a decoration. So 利剑 should mean the precious, expensive sword. Indulge in food and drink and have a lot of wealth and goods. So I like the words he called it 稻花. Okay, so I just have to literally translate as this is showing off what have been plundered. Okay, so and this is not Tao. Okay, so at the beginning, the Tao means the way, the road, and at the end, the Tao means the Tao. Okay, the Tao is the Tao. So use this double meaning with the same word. That's the text here. So I'll stop here and turn to Peiji.
Peiji, go ahead.
I share mine. Yeah. Okay, here's my translation.
Mhm.
If I have even just a little sense, I would treat the great way. Yet getting others to follow is scary. The great way is very smooth, yet citizens prefer the byways. Along the byways, the court appears very splendid, yet the fields are very weedy. The granary are very empty. Rulers don elegant attire, wield sharp swords, indulging in opulent feasts, accumulating excessive wealth and possessions. Such are the bandits of the byways. This is not the great way. My translation is not that different from others. The only difference is the third sentence. Mine is different from almost all the others. I think this is because the original text, the character is very hard to understand. I feel the Chinese scholars, particularly those authoritative scholars, they have the habit of guessing around when they feel using the original text does not fit to the context. They just try to find all the possible rationale to translate the original text as something which is not really reflect the original meaning of the text. This is just one example. I could be wrong on this. I'm stick to the original meaning of that character. That character is really mean offering, to others. Now, it doesn't say what offering is. But under the context, is clearly to me, is the first two lines, right? I have little, if I have just a little sense, I would treat the great way. But to offer such a understanding, the knowing to others is scary. Why scary? Because this is not something can be comprehended by others. And indeed, because it's very, very hard for others to understand. And he emphasized citizens prefer the byways. You see, on that byway, it continues to describe what's happening to the byways. It's a metaphor, it's the parables. It describe the human society in such a situation that is, equitable is not really there. And it's kind of robbery occurring. And the reality is there is a soil for that. And that's because people prefer, it's talking about not just the high class people, the leaders, citizens, individual citizens, they are also the part of that culture. They prefer the byways. So it's end that, such are the bandits of the byways. That is not the great way. So the author is basically make observation about the societies as he was seeing. I'll stop here.
So, Peggy, let me comment on your translation. Okay, hope you don't mind. Okay, I totally agree with your principle. I think I also follow the same principle. Reject the authoritarian translation because some text doesn't fit, right? I really appreciate this effort because sometimes you just want to fit the whole thing, so you have to twist around. Okay, and I agree with it. But unfortunately, I disagree on your third one. Okay, let me show the screen. This one. Okay, I think you are talking about this one, right? 为师是谓, right? Okay, so I totally understand your translation, but let me provide this way. Okay, two reasons. 师 you take as giving, right? That's why you are talking about giving. Okay, but I think the 师, if you look at the words, they have the fang on the side. That means the flag. That means the flag. Original meaning means the flag. So 师 here means like waving. Okay, something like waving around. So worry about waving around. So it fits to the whole tone of the sentence because at beginning, I have to assume each chapter, the author is different. So their tone will be different. So here he says, 介然有之 means you, 介 means a small thing. If I have some small thing, so I will assume this author is very humble. So his tone is, if I know a little bit thing, right? And then he said, I will worry about the going wavy way. 师 means the wavy way. So I think that's the way I look at this one because 师 means the flag, who is in the flag in the wind, right? There's a waving. That's the thing I ask you to consider. That's one of the options to think about. Yeah, that's it. So the rest, I think, will probably all the same.
The way I see the meaning of that character is different. Certainly, it is being used as offering, a gift, but I will do further research on this. Thanks for pointing out.
Thank you. Next up, so now we're going to discuss this number 53. We're going to start with David, Kwan, Laura, Cho, and Madeline. David, go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm interested again on the linguistic part before I go into my sort of reading of it. The Dao versus Wei. Are we saying these are two different translations or two different emphases, but I don't see how, I mean, Tao means way, right? So I don't know why maybe you can help me in commenting on why we're separating even the ideas, because being is not a static thing. Being is a path. Being has direction. When you're being, you have a scope you scan, like you're traveling along a field. You know, being has choice and inclination in it. It has uphills and downhills. So, you know, there are hard ways and easy parts of being. It's all travel. So I'm not sure what else is meant by Tao other than being. Now, maybe it's the fundamental absolute being. Oh, I have to pour the water out now. Okay, so I will ask, I'll comment on how I read the verse later, but that's my question. I mean, fundamental being is the fundamental way. That's the truth of being, but it's still exactly a way, isn't it? So what is the translator? What's Jason saying that there's two different meanings going on here? Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. I hope I make it clear, right? The Tao, you can the originally means that words means way. Okay, and also means the Tao. And then what's the meaning of Tao? Depends. Okay, so you can call it the being, or you can call it the Wu Wei, or the words. Okay, so that's the double meaning of that. And I will say this chapter, the author take advantage of this word, double meaning. So use its original meaning, which is the way, okay, to talk about when I walk into the way, is this way. And the end with this not a good way, okay? And this way means good principle, let's put this way. So same as English, right? That's not the right way to do it. And this way could be a way you are walking or a method you are talking about. I think that's the kind of the sense here.
Okay, all right. Thank you for helping clarify that. Maybe I'll just give my interpretation in this paragraph of one thing I see, which is this is a perfect verse for reading it in the two ways, which we have mentioned earlier in our weeks of talking. The leaders and rulers and the social structure are used in the particular images and imagery here, but it also talks at the same time, it's talking to an individual person about their personal self and your self-direction in your life. So, you know, the way, as much as it works for the court, is the way that works for your personal. So when we say the court is corrupt, the fields are neglected, the granaries are empty, we're using the language of kingship, but it applies as well to the individual. The court is corrupt. The court, you know, the decision-making, the head, what you choose you're going to value. For example, maybe you value your appearance and your status. Okay, so the court may be doing well and dressing up fancy, but the fields are neglected. What's growing? What are you producing? The granaries are empty. What have you stored up in terms of your good deeds and your value to other people in society, you know, as a human being, your granaries, what is that? So this reads, I think, both ways simultaneously very nicely. And I especially liked hearing the other translations for the end of this. My translation talks about the men who still don expensive dresses, carry sharp swords, gorge themselves with food and wine, wallow in superfluous wealth. Yeah, that's us when we indulge our passions and inclinations and without any sense of how they fit into the way. And it's so easy to do because it's easy to walk on that instead of the path. It's so easy to be distracted by the sparkly things, but the path is more modest and isn't like that. And we know that. And my translation, I like, it calls those men doing that, who are gorging themselves and wallowing in wealth. These men may be called the captains of robbers. That's the last line in my translation. I find that very nice. So
yeah, I think that the captain of, but literally is wrong, okay? Because Dao Hua means show off, okay? The what you plunder, you robbed, Okay, so that
But it's it's having taken all the value and plundering it, using it in this totally off the way. Like that's not success. You're wealthy? No, you're a plunderer. I mean, yeah, it could say, by the way, that means it's not the way. You're right. Thank you.
So, thank you, David. Next up is going to be Quan, Laura, Joe, Madeline, Penny, and Mark. Quan.
Okay, before I give my comment, I would like to maybe, I don't know if it can be called an answer, but at least a reply to what David just said about Tao and the way. We have to understand here that we have here a specific case of a synecdoche. Okay, a synecdoche is a figure of speech using a part of something for representing the whole. Okay, I think that most Americans know the synecdoche. Boots on the ground. Okay, boots is a part of GI and supposedly representing the whole GI, right? So here, Wei and Tao is a synecdoche, which is a specific case of a metonym transfer, a metonymic transfer, meaning that the Tao, or even the English word, the Wei, is the whole reality, is being, okay? And the way, meaning the steps of epistemological evolution, or the step of mind development that will bring you to the deep realization of that Wu Wei, or of that being, are the same, because the journey is used to symbolize the result of that journey, okay, the deep realization of being. Okay, so here it's once again the Tao Te Ching, as a lot of Chinese classical texts were written in poetic mode, and you have a lot of metaphor, a lot of synecdoches, a lot of metonymic transfer. Okay, so that's for the linguistic aspect of Wei and Tao. I'm coming now to my comment per se, and I would like to read something that is from Chuangzi. I think it's from the chapter of Robert Chu precisely. He who steals a belt buckle pays with his life. He who steals a state gets to be a feudal lord. So I think it's that very ironical, and at the same time, it's summarized perfectly stanza 53, okay? And also it relates to what I said about the character Wang, okay? The first horizontal layer is your personality. The second horizontal line is your individuality, and the top horizontal line is universal awareness. Of course, that if you are not at Wu Wei, well, you will be motivated by your personal desire to be part rather of the feudal lords. And to be frank with you, if I'm capable to steal a state and to be a feudal lord, I much prefer to steal a state and to be a feudal lord rather than to steal a buckle belt and to be executed. Let's be frank. So it goes back again to the education. If the child is not educated in the way that he will discover his true being at an early age, he would fight in the animal kingdom, meaning with sense perception, with intellects, and with social sophistication, to gain a sense of being, okay, to gain a sense of value, to gain a sense of his personal identity, since he did not get his true identity during early childhood. But if he gets his early identity during his early childhood, he would not be a camel, meaning that he would not receive the influences of people that would maybe bring him on the path of power, of wealth, and of lethal competition. But he will be in the, once again, I want to read the last line of 52, but to regain true visions in a home, okay? In a home is true visions in a home. Why I love so much that line. True vision in a home is your being, okay? and from your inner home, from your being, from Wu Wei, you would have true vision in the sense that you would see yourself as valuable, as being, and that talented. And because of that, you will not go down into lethal competition, and there will not be that kind of stuff that you would have when hold swords and for show off, and stealing a state and be a feudal lord and avoiding to be executed because you stole a buckle belt. But of course, if I have the choice to be a feudal lord or to be executed for having stolen a buckle belt, I would have stolen a state to be a feudal lord. But there is a better choice, is to realize your inner being, so you will not go down those two inferior paths. I stop here.
Thank you. Thank you, Kwan. Great comments. Next up is Laura, followed by Joe. Laura.
Okay, mine goes back to the prior one, and it really was just, I was sitting and listening, and all I could think of was Martin Luther King, that he was a perfect example of the Tao, with his movement, getting everybody to the Holy Land, his religious belief and his peace movement, and gathering all those people together and marching, with the whole idea of peace and so forth. And I think we could apply all of the Tao to Martin Luther King, and it would be a lovely example.
Thank you. Thank you, Laura.
Thanks.
See,
it fell under 2 minutes.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
I've been working on it.
Yes, you're doing very well. Thank you. Next up is going to be Joe.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different things that I thought that a lot of good points were already have been covered. I think that overall, the main theme for me is this idea of kind of balance. And when things are out of balance, when we go too much one way or too much the other, that creates, essentially shortages and some of the conflicts that we're seeing between what we would deem to be leaders or common people. If we think about the past, number 17 or anything like that, there are several passages in the Tao that talk about how the leaders are barely noticed, and that the people and the leaders are actually working in unison as one. So this is what happens when you separate from the Tao, that you're actually separating yourself from everyone else. And then it gets into this idea of splendor and things that we pursue. And this is the idea of pursuing material objects as opposed to actually pursuing, tranquility, being a sense of, a connectedness to everyone, where you're looking at everyone as kind of how we work together, not necessarily what you're going to get out of things. So, and I think a lot of times in relationships, that does often happen. That's highly problematic, where people go into the relationship looking at what they're going to extract as opposed to give. And then we're out of balance right there, so that the relationship itself suffers. From that is that the other idea is that that I had was, let me pull up my translation real quickly. The idea of actually just priorities in general. When we, well, not only priorities, actually, let me come back to this other idea of fear, that people won't listen, that people will deviate from the Tao. So in my translation in particular, it talks about, I walk on the main road of my only fear will be of straying from it. Keeping to the main road is easy, but people in general love to be sidetracked. And that people in general will often have a tendency to deviate from the Tao and actually pursue material objects and thinking that that is actually something that's going to be the answer to the problem. And I think that this is where you get to the idea of materialism in general, is that you have industrialized materialistic cultures that tend to value what you would call, I guess, the periphery, if you will. And they value the periphery as opposed to the center. And the center is where balance is achieved. So this idea that when our priorities, as not only as individuals, but as a culture, actually become out of balance, then these things actually have a way of leading to, as we would say, the people acquiring gorgeous clothes and the granaries are now bare, and the fields are full of weeds and mine. So that my translation, and the fields are ignored because the values of the individuals themselves are out of balance. So all these things that we think will actually satisfy us and be good to pursue are not really actually the things that are within nature. And so, and the further we deviate from that, the more challenging that it becomes. And we see this in any materialistic society in general. It's not necessarily relegated to a particular group or society.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Next up is going to be Madeline, followed by Mark, and then Penny. Madeline.
Okay, I'll be brief. This has something of a little bit of the flavor of Sun Tzu for me. The discussion of terrain and going this way and what the conditions are. It also resonated with a previous chapter we read and discussed about the horses that are born on the battlefield. So something that's sort of outside of the bounds of where you would normally be is taking place. And I think this one reads like an enlargement on the one that we had just read. So the one that we just read was on the individual level, and this is like what happens on the social level. When people get distracted, when you don't stay in your own house and cultivate your je. This is what happens in the wide world when you go off in search of those shiny objects and start plundering them. Thanks.
Thanks, Madeline. Jason, go ahead.
I need to go, and thank you, everyone. But I think the last word about this chapter 53, I just reread it, and I think I kind of feel this chapter is, the author probably a little bit different. So interesting is I answered David's question about Tao. That means the way, also that's so-called the Tao, the principle. Funny thing is, he also used the word Dao Hua. Okay, that's also the same pronunciation. They take the same way, Dao. Okay, as a principle, as a way, also as a rubber. Okay, but it's not the same word, but the same pronunciation. Okay, and that's the same as Huang quote on the Dao Zhi. That's one part of Zhuangzi famous saying about. So they all take this same pronunciation as the Dao and associates with the rubber Dao. This one. So thank you very much, and then see you next week, and
Wonderful.
happy discussion.
Thank you.